Welcome to RAPodcast. I am Draco655, joining as always by my co-hosts Shuzi and King Sizzle. How are you guys today?
Doing good, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back. Doing pretty good, Draco. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Today we are also joined by a very special guest. Let's give a warm welcome to Pulse XP. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. Thanks a lot for having me on the podcast. Pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. The three of us we have put together some questions for you, Pulse. So let's get it a shot. Let's go. So my first question I have for you is: we always like to start off by asking our guests this because it seems like everyone has an interesting story. How did you discover retro achievement?
I mean, mine's pretty basic. I started streaming retro, and then I ran into some retro streamers that showed me RA, and my buddy Mark, that I actually know in real life. He was like, "Oh, you love achievements on Xbox and stuff. We got to get you this retro achievement stuff." And as soon as the first achievement I ever got, I was addicted. I was addicted instantly. So, I just, basically just running into streamers. I had no idea it even existed till, let's see, I joined the site probably about, I'd say 2 years ago now. And I didn't really take it that serious at the beginning. But, and then I met Max, Game Squad, and then seeing how he was into it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into it like that too. And then there's my story.
I mean, that's pretty much like how everyone have us started. Like, we never know about what the website is all about, and now here we come. Like, we're just super addicted with one achievements. This is fantastic. Another question I have for you is: what is the appeal of retro achievement for you?
Well, like I said before, like I always like getting trophies on PlayStation and Xbox, and then I ran it, and I've always loved retro games, so and then they're like, well, you got all these cool achievements you can get on retro games, and I'm like, I got to check it out, and I started off with like my favorite games like Ocarina of Time and stuff like that, and I was like, it's awesome that we have something to do and to expand our knowledge on games that we already love, on RA.
I mean, yeah. Every time we play like even for me, the first game I play like you play Ocarina of Time and I play Mario Kart 64. So like seeing like those first moment, it's just always amazing. So do you have like current goals on RA? Like what are you working on? Do you like want more badges? Do you have like specific goals you want to reach?
I would like to eventually make it to the top 100. I think that's kind of my goal. I don't care to be like one of the top players, but I absolutely like to get to the top 100 one day.
Do you have any other goal except just to be on top 100s or just
Uh,
serving?
I want a badge like in my channel. I let my viewers pick the games I badge and stuff. One of my big goals that I have for myself before, if I ever stop doing retro achievements, is to badge every Castlevania game that's on the site, because Castlevania is one of my favorite game series of all time. I would love to badge every Castlevania game.
I mean, that would be a very fantastic goal. I mean, those Castlevania are pretty damn tough, and I know you have mastered like a couple of them. So congrats on those.
Yeah, I badged Castlevania 3 and Symphony of the Night so far.
Awesome. Also, I mean, I know you specific still a little bit. I mean, mentioned a little bit about that, but how do you decide what game you play on RA? Like, how do you pick them? I know you mentioned a little bit about that, but
I have they brought in the channel points thing on Twitch. If you get 50K channel points in my stream, you can select a game that'll go on a poll that the community votes on, and whatever game, when I badge a game, the game that's winning the poll, that's what game I badge next. Even if I've never played the game, know nothing about the game, no matter how hard the set is, I always play it till I badge it.
I mean, that's a lot of dedication and a lot of it's a like I mean a lot of not randomness, but how can I say that, like it can be tough. I mean, some games you never know. It's like you never know how it's gonna be hard, how hard it is. So it's amazing. I mean, so far you did everything. I think so far you batch everything, right?
I've badged every game that's won the poll so far. Yes.
That's amazing. Congrats on those. So my last question I have for you, and after that I'm gonna kick off to Sizzle to have some question for you. What are some of your favorite set that you have played so far on the Retro Achievements?
Oh, my favorite set so far ever would probably be either Ocarina of Time or Super Metroid. Both of those sets, I gained so much knowledge about the games that I didn't already know. Like, I did so much more in Ocarina of Time than I even know existed.
I'm actually starting some Ocarina of Time just recently, but I got a few questions for you, Pulse. What are some of your greatest achievements that you overcome in your retro achievements journey? Any particular hard achievements or any achievement sets that stand out from all the rest of them?
I did Contra Hard Corps on the Sega, and that game was a absolute nightmare. You had to like just the set was really hard, and I was really proud of myself when I conquered it. There was like you had to beat. You have 4 characters you have to play in the game, and you have to beat every ending with just the regular gun. And having to do that, it was I had it on my Sega when I was a kid, and I never beat the game before. And when it got selected, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And well, I wound up conquering it. That's those achievements are probably, and then like C4 on the lost levels, like you know, uh, and also Battletoads. Some of the achievements, the right side of the turbo tunnel on Battletoads, that was a nightmare. I
Oh,
conquered it.
jeez. Battletoads and Contra are like the hardest games, right?
Yeah, and then I did Mission Impossible 64. That's like the jankiest game ever, and some of the achievements were just a freaking nightmare. But I conquered it. Like there was a speed run one. Like, have you guys ever played Mission Impossible on the 64?
I have not.
Yeah, there's one where like literally you have to jump on this truck and you have to jump. If you fall on it, you die. If you jump on it, you live. It was so weird. It took me hours to figure it out, but I finally did, and I was really happy I figured it out.
Besides of hard achievements, are there any achievements you and maybe some that you don't like
Mm,
in general conditions?
to be quite honest with you, I think I don't really. The one I hate the most is I'm working on Final Fantasy IX right now. I have to do the jump rope thing 1,000 times. I have to sit there, and it takes 7 minutes and 30 seconds of just tapping X. So it's an absolute nightmare. It's what I'm working on right now, actually. Like in my stream, is the jump rope achievement on Final Fantasy IX. It's an absolute nightmare.
How has achievement hunting changed in the ways in which you approach games?
Oh man, it it's changed the way. I'm trying to think how to put this without sounding off. Um, sorry, I'm kind of blanking out here.
That's all good.
It's changed the way I've looked at games, just like because before RA on the old retro games, it was always about trying to beat the games as fast as possible. Now it's kind of like slowed you down. You have to pay attention to your achievements. Especially like in a set like Final Fantasy IX, like you kill a boss, then you miss the achievement if you don't get the achievement in the area.
Are there any games that you would like to see added to RA?
I've got a couple requested right now. Since PS1's dropped, like I've got the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. I'd love to see that get a set. I've Kodelka. It's kind of like the start of the Shadow Heart series. I'd like that to get a set. I've also Alundra, Load Runner, Star Ocean: The Second Story. Like I'm a big PS1 N64 nut, so I freaking I've really been hard on requesting games for the PlayStation. I'm sure they're being worked on. It's just
They all take time.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Especially when you get to the PlayStation genre itself, there's normally 100+ achievements on the game, so it takes a
Yeah.
while.
There's a lot of them, especially for the RPGs.
Yep.
Are there any actually hold on. What is your most proud what are you most proud of in your journey of RA?
The other day, I was in the top 500, but I already dropped out of it. But I was really happy when I cracked the top 500 finally, and I'll also be really excited the day I badge Final Fantasy IX because I've been working on it for, I'd say, at least 2 months now,
Jeez.
constantly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Did do you have any rivals on RA? Do you like people who you compete with to stay above,
I wouldn't say
or
there's
using
any.
motivation?
I wouldn't say there's anybody that I compete with. There's sometimes like me. You guys had Bud Cave TV on. Me and Bud will like we were doing Super Mario Brothers 64, and we just kind of we'll be like, oh, we're working on the same set. We kind of race or see who can get the most achievements. Sometimes I'll start a set and like Sarconius, he'll freaking be like, oh, so you're doing that set? I'm gonna do it too. And we'll just try to get it done first, stuff like that. I wouldn't say personally. I don't try to stay above anybody personally, but there's times like I'll be working on a set and I'll see one of my buddies are working on a set, and we kind of just we run our mouths to each other a little bit back and forth when we take the lead on each other for the set that we're working on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's a bunch of people who have different rivals in that kind of situation. Um, Speaking of favorite games, and what's your favorite genre of games? Like, or what's your favorite least genre?
My favorite genre, I would say, would probably be platformers or RPGs. My least favorite would probably be, I don't know. I wouldn't say I have a least favorite. There's certain games and certain genres that are towards the bottom of my list, but there's always fun games even of that genre that come out. So I just love video games in general, man. It's not I don't really have a least favorite genre.
Is there any like other? I don't know. Is there another more reason so why you don't like not many genres? Um, like, or what I should say is that what appeals you more in RPG or platformers?
Well, platformers I think are just like the top of like your hardest games, and thank God I was gifted it. I'm pretty good at platformers, and like, and with the RPGs, it's just I like to play games that are going to take a while and not be. I mean, I don't know if I want them to be 2 months long, like Final Fantasy IX's been, but I like to grind in a game like in Final Fantasy IX. I keep going back to that. It has the Chocobo Hot and Cold, and you got to grind and grind and grind to get all the treasures and stuff. I really enjoy stuff like that. And like the card games on the Final Fantasy games, the mini games and everything. There's like so much more to RPGs than just, the straight turn based. You always get a bunch of mini games, you always get a bunch of stuff to collect. And that's why I appreciate the RPG genre so much.
I have not played as much RPGs probably as you have, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a time where I'm going to probably get to them, and I'm mostly a fan of platformers.
Me
Um,
too.
Speaking about platformers and RPGs, since they're your favorite, if you could only choose one of them, what is your all time favorite?
Oh, it's definitely Ninja Gaiden for a platformer. I love Ninja Gaiden 1. It's my favorite Nintendo game.
Is that harder or less harder than Contra? Because I know Ninja Gaiden is probably a harder game
Ninja
based on
Gaiden's
what I've
easier for
heard.
me because I've been playing it since I was like freaking 4 years old. And but like Ninja Gaiden took me like I would say it took me about 2 hours to badge when I first started RA. It took me like 2 hours
Wow.
because I know the game inside and out, and I already knew how to do everything. And like I said, I've been playing Ninja Gaiden since I was freaking a wee little lad.
Do you have a favorite console at all?
Hmm. My favorite console would probably be the Super Nintendo, and I would also say the PlayStation 2.
Those are pretty good systems. They're probably, I'd say probably like one of my top. Also, got those RPGs, and then you got a lot of platformers on SNES.
Yep. It's hard not to say the NES too because it's the one I played the most as a kid. But I would give the SNES just over the legendary titles it's had on it over the years.
What's your most frustrating moment that you've had to experience in a video game?
Hmm. I would say when I started my journey on Battletoads, because like it literally took me 19 straight streams to finally beat it, and I would say learning that game because I played it like maybe once as a kid. Having to learn Battletoads was an absolute it was challenging, and I mean I don't know if you've ever played Battletoads, but like everything comes at you so fast. Basically, you're going to die every time you get to a new level. To you learn every little spot that every little enemy is coming from.
Yeah, I agree. That's all the questions I have for you, Pulse. I'm gonna hand it over to Shoot now. He has some questions for you too.
Thanks, Sizzle and Frank. I do feel you on having to deal with playing a Final Fantasy game for a long period of time. So I appreciate you sharing that story with us. I remember back when I was doing 7, and it took me about 2.5 months as well.
Yeah.
So I definitely share some of that pain that you've gone through, and that is always one of the things that I always appreciate when I watch your stream. I've said this to you, obviously off the podcast as well, but just the fact that you're willing to just stick it out regardless of the difficulty of a set. There's a lot of people that eventually there's always that one achievement where they throw in the towel, or they uh they give up, and that's not something that I don't think I've ever seen you do that before on stream. Get frustrated, certainly. I mean, that's a experience that we all share as well, but it is admirable that you're always willing to push through, and I can appreciate that as well. So anyway, I just had some questions for you, so I guess I'll dive right into those. So starting off, kind of switching gears here a little bit, have you been playing many titles outside of retro achievements these days, or are you mainly focused on retro achievements?
Um, I mean, a big part is focused on retro achievements, but I just currently got a PS5 probably a month ago, so I've been playing like Demon Souls and Devil May Cry 5, and I played the new Hitman and the new Spider Man and stuff. It's hard not to play my PS5 sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah. What would you say is your top title on PS5 that you've liked the most?
Oh, it's definitely Demon Souls.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've never played Dark Souls or Demon Souls, but I know that those games can be pretty punishing as well. So it sounds like you're kind of glutton for punishment inside of retro achievements and outside of retro achievements a little bit. So that kind of dives me into my next question. We talk a lot about the tuning on games relative to modern games, and a lot of people feel like modern games are kind of soft, I guess might be the word. Most modern games are undertuned, as somebody might say, from like a technical perspective. And so I kind of wanted to get your take uh, a little bit on how do you feel about modern gaming in general, as opposed to what we do every day on retro achievements. How do you feel about just the difficulty and kind of the overall atmosphere of modern gaming versus retro gaming?
Well, as modern gaming goes, I've always said that I think the game should take away the being able to play on easy, because a lot of people will just literally select easy. So I was saying it earlier, how about how like on retro games I would literally just try to like beat the game as fast as possible until I ran into retro achievements, and that's kind of how modern games are these days, because you have the easy, normally you have like 5 different difficulties you can play a game on, and most of the time you don't even get into the difficult aspect of the game because you just, oh, I'm gonna play it on easy, beat it real quick, and then put it on the shelf and never play it again. That's always been my biggest problem with modern gaming, is that half the time people don't even know how hard a game is because they can just select the easy difficulty and then beat the game and go on about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, one of the big things is just that I am kind of one of those people that feel like two difficulties in a title isn't enough, and three is almost kind of underwhelming, because a lot of the time people will just choose hard and then they don't play normal, for example, because if you've done hard, then there's really no point in normal. And so I always felt like 4 is kind of that magic number as far as the difficulty is concerned. There's like an easy, a normal, a hard, and then like an extreme that's usually grossly overtuned unless you've mastered the hard and you kind of just progress through that one. Um, so I've always kind of felt like 4 is that magic number, but I mean, there's always going to be people that are outliers on the graph where the extreme is nothing to them. I'm the speedrunners and people that do deathless and damageless just for the fun of it, not necessarily for the achievements, or the kind of people that come to mind. Um, but kind of going a little bit back to your past, you talked a little bit about, I think you said that you played Contra Hardcore growing up and you didn't beat it, and then obviously you've mastered it on Retro Achievements now. Congratulations on that, by the way, because that's definitely not an easy set. What would you say are some of your other favorite gaming memories from your childhood?
I'm not trying to get all sobby, but I had pneumonia one year during Christmas, and I was in the hospital, and my dad went out and bought me Super Punch Out on the SNES and brought it to me in the hospital, and I'm a big fan of like Mike Tyson Punch Out and Super Punch Out, the Wii Punch Out, and it always goes back to in my memory just thinking about the first day I got Super Punch Out. And I did, I played it nonstop. They let me hook my Super Nintendo up in the hospital room, and freaking I'm sitting there just playing video games while I'm hooked up to oxygen because I have pneumonia. And I beat Super Punch Out while I was in the hospital, and that's always a gaming memory that I'll always have, because Super Punch Out's probably in my top 5. I really like the Punch Out games, and in that situation, that's a gaming memory that'll stick with me forever.
That's kind of a funny story, because yeah, I can only imagine your face when you're just in the hospital and you're recovering, and then you finally beat this really difficult game. And I don't know if you like, I'm just like picturing you trying to have this. I mean, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but just trying to have the strength to like fist pump or like raise your arm or something like that. So, but yeah, no, I've actually been kind of thinking about trying to get into some different genres on RA, and one of those being like the Mike Tyson games and maybe some more beat 'em ups. I'm trying to get back into that and like fighting games, so they're all kind of in a similar orbit, not quite the same, but wanted to talk a little bit also about your Twitch stream. That's, I think, what people know you for quite a bit. I'm certainly tuned in a lot. People are watching you go through these difficult games on Retro Achievements, and you have quite a community, quite an excellent community, I'd say. People that really have your back, people that are super super friendly, make everybody feel warm and welcome. You have a lot of very skilled players in your stream that are always trying to assist, and it's just got a really interesting vibe to it. And I'm hopeful that you know with more and more people streaming Retro Achievements, it's starting to become such a great streaming community. It's still a small community. There aren't that many people that stream Retro Achievements. I always make the joke that there's maybe like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 people or something like that. I'm just kind of throwing numbers out there, but there aren't that many people that stream Retro Achievements. If you add the tag achievement hunting under the category retro, you always see a few. But it'd certainly be nice if there were more streams like yours that are making everyone kind of um, you know become attracted to the community and just have a general sense of community spirit. So you're doing a lot of good by kind of fostering a community like that, and I think everyone certainly appreciates that as well. So I want to kind of go back to how you got started on that. So tell me a little bit more, Frank, about how did you get started streaming on Twitch?
Um, it's a funny story. Like, I was playing Xbox one night, and my buddy Murphy was like, "Man, you have like every video game." So he was like, he started streaming like maybe 3 months before I did, and same with my buddy Mark, Epic Empire, who's always in my stream. They always hassled me because, you know, we always just played video games and cracked up and stuff. And they're like, with all the games you have, and with your work schedule and your kids are asleep and you're awake all the time, they're like, why don't you freaking stream on Twitch? And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot. And then next thing you know, I didn't have a computer at the time or anything. I started streaming on my PS4 and my Xbox One, and then next thing you know, I started building a community. I was having more fun. Then I bought my computer and all my stream equipment and stuff, and before you know it, I've started my community's it's been growing. Like you said, my community's really cool and very supportive, and I would like to say I got a pretty big RA community now that freaking comes in. But yeah, just it was basically me and a couple friends on the internet playing something, and they were like, yeah, you got the personality for it. They're like, you should definitely try out Twitch. And here we are, freaking almost 4 years later.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been a journey, and I hope that your stream does continue to grow, Frank. Again, you've really done a great service to the community by having a place that everyone can come and kind of feel included, whether there's somebody that just followed you that day or they're, somebody that's been watching you for a long time. And you have great moderators as well. So it just works. I mean, there's no real other way to say it than it just works. And it certainly makes my Fridays a lot less miserable. When I saw you playing Batman the other day, I was like, oh, it's a Frank morning stream. I know what I'm doing with my morning while I'm working, like, because I'm still working from home, and so just having those streams during the day is such a game changer for me and mixing up the monotony of the work that I do. So I really appreciate that.
Hey, no problem, man. Shoot, you're a proud member of my community, brother.
I appreciate that, and like I said, it just works. I mean, again, you've just got great people, so it works. So, um, kind of talking a little bit more about Twitch here, and it is kind of its own unique atmosphere, especially the retro community. Standing out from the crowd on Twitch can be a little bit of a challenge, especially in retro, because I wouldn't say that it's necessarily saturated. I think retro achievements is kind of its own niche, but you have to stand out in some way a little bit in order to grow your stream and have that degree of success that you do. So in your opinion, Frank, what do you feel like makes your stream unique or kind of gives you that extra standout quality that attracts people to the stream? I know a lot of the time on stream you say that it's just you just stream and people show up. And I do think that there is that secret ingredient of having a good personality, but what else do you think, Frank, is why do you think people are attracted to the stream, and what makes your stream unique?
I think a lot of people are attracted to the aspect that, like, they'll see me start a game and I won't finish it. And, I'll go extremely hard on it till I badge it. And most of I would say probably about 80% of my communities are RA players themselves in one way or another, regardless if they're hardcore RA or they do it for fun. And people like to see me bang my head up against the wall doing all this hard stuff and stuff. I'd say that's I'd say that's what pulls people in. Like you said, you love coming in and watching me struggle for 3 hours, trying to beat on a Friday morning, trying to beat the Joker damage list, and me screaming and yelling and cutting up until I finally get it. And I think that's one of the things that draw people in as well. They see my determination. I don't have the most skill, but I got determination, and I think they see that, and that's what makes them stick around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's interesting that you say that because, that's something that you and I share, Frank. I'm not particularly skilled at a lot of different games. There are a few that I just crush at, but they're very few and far between. But you give me enough time, and I'll get pretty good at something unless it's just egregiously not, it just egregiously doesn't line up with what I'm good at. You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is something that you have said before that I think rings so true, is just that, it's not a matter of if you want to, it's not a matter, I'm trying to think of the way that you put this. I think you said like something like you can badge anything. It's just, are you willing to put in the time? I think that's what you said. I think that's maybe what you said, maybe not verbatim, but you said something to that effect. And I think in 99% of cases that statement is true. I think that if you're willing to put in the time into something, then you will eventually badge it. You will eventually stop making the same mistakes, hundreds, if not thousands of times, depending on what the set is, over and over again. And you will eventually see patterns. You'll look up a video. You will do something to move on in your life. Whether you hate the game at the end of the day or not, you will figure out a way. Um, and that's something that really pushes me through achievement sets a lot of the time, is just that determination. Like, you're one of the believe it or not, you're one of the big reasons that I do stick with sets for as long as I do. Even when I'm on a point grind or a point kick, it's just because I'm so determined to not be stuck at like 80% of the set done. I hate seeing that.
Yep.
And so, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I can't, like, I'm looking at my RA page right now, and I see those 3 achievements for Final Fantasy 9, and it's just killing me.
Yeah, I'm in a situation where I'm doing a game and I have one achievement left right now, and it requires quite good execution. But it's like I'm just right there, and I just don't want to give up. And it's conversations like these, or when you're pushing through at the same time. Because a lot of the time when I'm on playing retro achievements off stream, it's been a little while since I streamed. I've been taking a little bit of a break. Just watching your stream and seeing that determination is something that I want to be able to mirror, and I get equally as frustrated, sometimes when things are difficult, but just push through. You just either find a way, or you just eventually find patterns. Like, you just find a way to do it, because if you have the time, then um, eventually you're going to get to it. That's one of the things also that kind of impresses me the most is, you have a family, you have work, and yet you still have the time to be able to master these difficult sets. And I could go on and on about that, but another question that I had for you is, how do you, I know you have people spend channel points sometimes for games to stream. Is there any other way that you kind of determine what you're going to play on stream, or is it strictly channel points?
Well, lately it's been strictly channel points, but there's a couple games that just got sets that I'm going to throw in and play. Like the Japanese version of Castlevania 3 got a set the other day, and I got to tackle that one. And also, like, like any of the I'd like to make it on the leaderboard for that game. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because I started it the other day and played it a little bit, and I haven't went back to it yet. But it's basically, if it's some of my favorite games and they get sets, or like a variety of their game gets a set, normally I'll play it a little bit and then I'll finish it on stream.
Okay, interesting. Um, Yeah, I did. I think I was watching Castlevania. I think I was watching. We had Max Million on last week. I think I was watching him play the new Castlevania set, and he definitely looked like it definitely looked tough. But he's really, really good. So I'm sure that he
Yeah,
would get it if
it'll
he
be nothing.
hasn't at this
It'll be
point.
nothing for Max.
Yeah, yeah, that's his bread and butter. He's got so many different genres that he's good at. So I'm sure he'll get through it as well. But uh, what type of games do you feel like make for the best streams, the best content, or most entertaining content that your viewers get to watch from you?
Oh, hardcore platformers for sure. Like some of my biggest streams ever was when I was playing Battletoads.
Yeah, I think I remember when I was watching you play Battletoads a while ago. I can't remember if you, I honestly can't remember if you were doing it for the achievements or if you were playing it on the maybe the OG hardware. I know you showed the cartridge on the screen, so I'm guessing not. I'm guessing it was emulator, but you also do have the cartridge for Battletoads, right? Or am I
Oh
just
yes,
completely
absolutely.
okay?
I have it.
So there have been a lot of really good moments on your stream and a lot of really fun things to watch. I was there for C4. Um, I was there for Damageless Joker this week, and again, congratulations on that. What
Thank
would
you.
you say? Yeah, what would you say has been your favorite moment that's happened during one of your streams?
Hmm. Man, there's a lot. I would say one of the most recent ones from like last year would be I was doing Donkey Kong 64, and like that damageless King K. Rool fight took me 8 hours. I literally did it for 8 hours. I streamed for 8 hours straight, trying to get that achievement. And when I finally did, man, my chat just blew up because I was so determined. I would have streamed for 24 hours. I was not getting offline without beating that dude damageless. It wasn't going to happen. And as you know, in Donkey Kong 64, you got to fight him with all five Kongs and can't get hit with either one of them. So it's a long fight, a long process, and a pain in the butt. And I think it took me like 8 hours and 39 minutes or something to get that one achievement. And a lot of it was I was tired. I was making myself stay on, and I was just determined to get it that night. And then I finally got it, and that's probably been like one of my biggest moments on my stream in the last year, probably.
Jeez, 8 hours. That's insane. I mean, yeah, I feel it. You know, at a certain point, I think there's a little bit of diminishing returns. Like I hate putting something down, especially when I'm close. But I think I can't. I think it was Donkey Kong Country, the fishing game you were watching me a while back. I'm just like, it's like 1 or 1:30 in the morning. I'm just like, okay, maybe another one more attempt, and before I know it, it's like 3:30 or 4.
Yeah, it was like 6 a.m. my time, and I couldn't go to bed till you got it. Like you
Yeah,
were either going to get off or you were going to get it, and I
yeah,
wasn't going nowhere till you did.
yeah, and I appreciate that. It's just like, and then of course, the next day I come back, I get like in half an hour. So, talking about diminishing returns, sometimes it's better just to go to bed.
Hmm.
Like, sometimes it's better just to go to bed. But no, I mean, I can remember a time where I did the Power Rangers game for Game Boy. I haven't mastered both of them. I mastered one of them, and the boss took me 6 hours to get the damageless, and I eventually did it. But it's just like, ugh, it's like when you're spending that long on something, it can um, definitely be that hype moment at the end. I have a recording of me, um, getting that damageless and just start screaming and yelling and like jumping up and down. So the satisfaction of doing executing a tough damageless, there's like nothing else like that in the world. There's nothing that gets the blood pumping like that. So
That's what makes RA so great, man. It's like you sit there and you're so angry. You're like, why'd they put this achievement in? Blah blah blah. And then as soon as you conquer it and that you get that feeling, you're just like, man, I love that dev for putting that achievement in the game.
I know it's like oh yeah, it's like I hate this, I hate this, I hate oh okay, I'm good with this. This was a great set. So um what would you say you've learned during your time as a streamer, Frank?
Oh man, I learned that there's a lot of people out there that are just as crazy about video games as I am, man. Like that's the main thing I've taken from. Like I never knew there was so many people like me out there until I started streaming, and that's why I don't think I'll ever, unless I have to or something. I would never go away from Twitch and RA, is because I've just met so many great and friendly people that are just like me, and they give the same kind of dedication and stuff as I do, and that's definitely something I've learned from my time on Twitch and RA and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot of there's a lot to learn as a streamer,
There's a lot of nerds like me out there.
yeah. There are a lot of people. I mean, the retro community is so unique. People talk a lot about this, but the retro community, especially the RA community, is so unique, but such a great mix up of people that it does make for a lot of interesting conversations like these. So, um, do you have any advice for people who are kind of interested in getting started in streaming, but unsure how to get going with it?
I would say the biggest thing is a lot of people, you just got to hit the go live button, man, and go from there. Like a lot of people just sit there and think about it, and literally, like I can't emphasize this enough. You can't pay attention to the logistics of streaming. Just go on there with the hopes of meeting new people, just to have conversations about video games and stuff like that, and go from there. That's all you have to do. Like, I don't pay attention to hardly anything. I just go live, and I set my sights on something like, like what I'm going to do today on RA, or if I'm playing Demon Souls with a buddy or stuff. And I don't pay attention to nothing else. I just focus on my chat, try not to do anything too stupid. And, just that you can't pay attention and let things get in your head when it comes to streaming, because if you do, it takes away the fun of it. And once the fun's gone, then you're basically just hitting live and being angry, and you don't want to do that. So if there was any advice I could give, it's just get on Twitch to have fun and find people to communicate with and make new friends and go from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that I'm not a certainly a big streamer or anything like that. Um, but at the end of the day, it's just like all that trepidation and hesitation about will people like this? Will they like that? Am I going to be successful at this? Will I be unsuccessful? I think those are all just bad thoughts that people have to get out of their mind if they're going to start streaming.
Yep.
Um, it's just one of those things where you just like you said you got to hit the go live button and kind of refine your stream and add little like things and do different things as you go. Like a lot of us use the achievement tracker on stream, and it kind of shows where we're at with things and all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that's good advice, is to not go on stream for ambitions of making money or anything like that, just to have fun
Absolutely.
with it. Have
Yep.
fun with it. And I think if you have fun with it, people will naturally be drawn to your stream. At least that's always kind of been how it's been for me. And I have less than 200 followers, so I could just be completely talking out my rear. But I think the reason that people do come by the stream when they do is just because they just enjoy hanging out. Because that's what we all have this passion in common of retro achievements, and we just like sharing it with the world.
I
So
agree 100%.
yeah, for sure. Um, how did you come up with your name, Frank? Pulse XP.
Well, I used to play. I used to be a semi-pro in Rainbow Six Vegas 2, a first-person shooter, and my name was Pulse. And then when I started on Twitch, I was a viewer, and my football number was 28, so I made my name Pulse 28. And then like my buddy was like, "Well, Pulse XP is available on Twitch. That way you can get rid of the numbers in your name." So, and then I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll be Pulse XP. But it was my MLG name on Rainbow Six Vegas 2 was Pulse, and I wanted to take that with me. It's been my name for like ever now. I had two names. I had Clutch, and then I had Pulse, and Pulse stuck with me a lot more than Clutch. So that's how I got my name.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's always an interesting history behind someone's name and how they came up with it, especially if they've been somebody that's been playing games for a while. So it's always interesting to hear those stories. Do you have any favorite hobbies or things that you like to do outside of gaming?
Oh, it's just basically anymore, since I'm older and I have three kids, it's just, do whatever my kids want to do. Like we've recently here in KY, we've gotten a lot of snow. So, I've been going outside with the kids and freaking playing in the snow, my oldest son, he's starting to want to play sports. So we go outside and we play sports and stuff like that. So like my hobbies are, I mean, my only hobby now is sports and video games, because that's all I have time for, and trying to keep up with my three kids. That's
Gotcha.
basically all the time I have anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, again, it is always really fascinating to me that you're able to manage so much, and it seems like your wife also is very supportive and kind of helping you out with things, and also plays on retro achievements, has
Yep.
mastered Tetris, which I have not done. So congratulations to Lauren on that. That is a very
Yeah,
difficult set.
she's very talented at video games. Like the
Yeah.
first purchase we actually made as a couple was a Wii.
Oh, really? Okay, I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yep.
Wow.
She loves video games, man. And I tell you what, days that I'm gonna take off streaming, like she will literally just be like, "Go in there and go live." Like, all right, fine, I'll go stream.
Yeah, I think it's everybody needs a best friend like that who's kind of there to just pick them up and push them that much further and be supportive of them. So she's always a good sport on streams as well. And also, like I said, she's a gamer, man. She's mastered Tetris. I have not done that. The NES version, that's not an easy one, especially those really really fast levels. So I think I'm like 30 out of 37 or something like that. So uh,
She was banging her head on the wall on those fast achievements, man. It took her a while, but she stuck. She's like me. She was determined. She stuck with it. She's got 3 badges on RA now. I better watch out.
yeah. Well, congratulations to her on that. Like I said, I haven't mastered that, so I mean that's certainly something that isn't easy. That's a tough set, and I would say I'm pretty decent at Tetris, but I'm not that good, not yet. So, you talked a little bit about sports and outside of retro achievements, what you're doing. Do you play any kind of sports a little bit outside of retro achievement, or what do you kind of when you're talking about sports? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, in high school, I played football, basketball, and baseball. But when I got out of high school, I actually played on a traveling softball team, on a men's league softball team. And we actually traveled state to state playing. And, they have a World Series of softball down at Disney World in Florida. I've went there and freaking played in that a couple times and stuff like that. I've played sports my entire life since I was 8 years old till I stopped playing softball when my wife Lauren had our first son. That's kind of when I gave it up and was like, yeah, it's just time to work and make money for the family. But I played in an indoor football league for years. I played in freaking I played on a traveling softball team. I've always played sports, always.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I am admittedly awful at sports. I have two left feet. It's probably a genetic thing, but I've always been the person that a little bit embarrassing, but just being forthright, was like one of the last people to get picked. Anytime there's like two team captains, it's like, okay, I'm gonna be last. Sick. But at the end of the day, it's all people are just good at different things. Some people are just built differently, and I think that just goes back to being determined enough at something. I mean, even if you're awful at sports, for example, if you play enough and you train enough, you will probably, I mean, factually speaking, you'll never be better than somebody that's just naturally gifted and athletic,
Yep.
but you can still get pretty good. You can still get pretty good. So
Sports are
it's
just
just,
like video games.
yeah, it's funny because there's always this like classic trope of people talking about sports and saying, "Oh, video games are for nerds," and people on the opposite side of the spectrum, people that are making fun of sports and saying, "Oh, sports are for meatheads," or "Sports are for jocks," or whatever. There's that classic nerd jock
Yep.
trope. But the funny thing is a lot of people that are really good at sports love video games. Like they're not mutually exclusive to one another. Like there's people that do a lot of both that love it. Like when I used to play World of Warcraft, a lot of people that were in my guild, they would talk about like the NFL and things like that. And I have no idea. I'm one person that I just stick to my own lane because I could not pretend to know anything about sports. But I think there are a lot of people that kind of over the years have broken that trope, that classic like separationist trope of people at video games stick to video games, people at sports stick to sports because they share that commonality of just practicing enough and being good at something. You know,
Yep.
so yeah.
I actually got a funny story. Freaking, I remember I was in 7th grade. We're on the bus going on a road game, and a bunch of my teammates was getting on me and yelling because like me and another teammate we were trading Pokemon cards on the bus to go to a football game, and freaking they were just nailing us, like calling us nerd. They're like, "Can't you guys just wait till after the game?" And I'm like, I'm not going to see Alex again for like a week, so we got to get this done. All right.
Yeah, no, I remember Pokemon cards back in the day. Playing with those. I wasn't much good at the game itself, but I just like to trade them and like collect them and all that stuff. And I remember people getting on people about that, so it's funny. Um, Tell us a fun fact about yourself. It could be just about anything. Something maybe that people might not expect from you.
Mm.
I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I'm sorry.
A fun fact about myself. Well, I mean, I kind of said it earlier. A fun fact is, I used to, I almost was a pro at a modern game. I mean, people coming in my stream would never notice how good I am at like Call of Duty and like games like that, I guess. Because they watch me do nothing but play like retro games. Like I was really involved before I ever found RA. Like I used to play competitive in like any shooter and was really good. And if I would have had the time, I know for a fact like I was better than almost everybody at Rainbow Six that played up on the stage.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. That you mentioned that, because I know of at least one or two other streamers that they started out in like PUBG or something more modern, and then they shifted towards retro, and it's kind of interesting to see how their skill set shifted a little bit, because modern games are so, I'm trying to think of a way to put this. They're kind of they're so set up for you, versus retro, like everything is just like, okay, figure this out or you're dead. Oh, I have no continues. Oh, there's this one jump that's literally like freaking impossible. That, oh, there's no checkpoints. We're so used to um we're just so used to, in modern games, such a certain level of comfort, that when all four of those walls come down and we're just out in the open and we're just trying to navigate our way through a retro game, at times it can be frustrating but relaxing at the same time. I maybe like it's like that good kind of anxiety, like when you're, at least for me, when you're driving on the freeway, it's like fast and it's exciting, but at the same time it's like, okay, if I hit somebody else, I'm just gonna die. So I don't know if that makes sense to you at all, or that
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
vibes with you, but just like, um it's interesting that you mentioned that you um used to play like Rainbow Six and things like that, because I wouldn't expect that of you. I would always take you as somebody, because you have kind of that like uh old school vibe to you, where you just like, I could picture this person as somebody that plays a lot of, play grew up with stuff back in the day and just really enjoys playing retro games and things like that. But it's good that you kind of mix things up, and you have that going on as well. What would you say is kind of, I guess this will be my last question, and then we'll kick it back over to Mr. Draco here to wrap things up. But between, let's say, modern games and retro games, what would you say is kind of something that you feel like they both share? It can be a mechanic, it can be just about anything that's equally as punishing in modern games as it is in retro games. Could be anything like continues, um, and it could be any, and it can, you can use a game as an example as well, just to kind of make it a little bit easier.
Well,
But
this kind of ain't what you're talking about. But what like I've noticed with modern, I think a lot of the developers of games have now realized how popular retro still is, and you're starting to get a lot more retro-esque type games now than we did, like 10 years ago. A lot of things are trying to copy the old school, like you have Castlevania, for instance, and now you got Bloodstained, which is pretty much Castlevania. It's just got a new fancy name. And like so what I'm trying to say is like you basically retro. I think really the influence of retro is really influencing the games that we're getting now these days more than it ever has. Is what I'm trying to say, and I guess that's kind of the answer to your question. Like they realized how people like the busting of the difficulty back on the retro games, which I mean, well, like I'm not gonna lie, retro games are harder than modern games for sure, 100%. Like there's no in between. Retro games are just harder. Like you're not gonna tell me. I mean, now you do get some hard games, like you got like Mortal Shell, you got like the Dark Soul s games and stuff like that of modern, and then that's really the ceiling point for your. Well, there's a couple more, but I'm just using the Dark
yeah,
Souls as an example.
yeah, yeah.
But I feel like I just feel like that's retro is showing its face towards the modern games now, because they're literally, like Super Ghouls and Ghosts getting a sequel on the Switch here soon, and so us little retro guys, I think we got some influence. We definitely got some influence on stuff, because you're starting to see sequels. You had Battletoads get a sequel this year. You had Streets of Rage 4 get a sequel this year, or Streets of Rage get a sequel.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's fun. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I think they are these large, companies. They are starting to kind of get back on that vibe. I mean, yeah, I think you see that a lot in with movies. Literally every movie is being
Yeah.
remade.
Yep.
Um, but that's a great point, that video games are kind of in this interesting renaissance period of, like, I mean, I don't even call it renaissance period, but kind of this period of um things that are old coming back. I mean, you even have it in the form of consoles with things like, the Nintendo Classic,
Yep.
the Super Nintendo Classic. There's probably dozens of third party different retro systems that are out there, or
Yep.
retro
Absolutely.
remake things like that. Like there's the Retron, there's Raspberry Pi, there's a bunch of different Pi boards that you can put like emulation station on, or Laka, or like Launchbox, or any of that kind of stuff. So there is definitely this outcry from the community that the game development companies are cashing in on. And the other point that you brought up that I thought was really great is just that retro games being more difficult than modern games, because I think I agree with you, and I think I hear where you're coming from, in just that certainly there are really difficult modern games, but I was just kind of thinking, in my head, for every excuse me, for every modern game that's difficult, there's like 24 retro games that are just as difficult, if not more, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
um this isn't like throwing shade on, like, modern games or anything like
Oh,
that. it's
absolutely
just
not.
it's just the reality of it, that um everything's in a nice packaged box, and you got your toolkit that you got to work with, and everything kind of just works. And if you do it pretty well, then you're going to get through it in a modern game. And some modern games you have to do it extremely well, and there's a degree of precision to that. But at the end of the day, I just think it's true that retro games are just, they're built differently. They're built on a different foundation of game development principles. And I'm not a game developer, I just do game testing, so I have kind of a very low on the totem pole perspective of it. But I mean, you and I have both played enough retro games to kind of have it in our minds that they're designed in a way that they cared less about, the player's feelings, I think. This sounds so bad, like I'm throwing shade on modern games. I'm really not trying to, but I just think that they're designed less on the player's feelings and emotions, um, and more upon just like making the player have to learn the game and master the game. And that kind of ties into
Yep.
retro achievements, and just being such a great fusion of the two, of even retro games that are not necessarily that difficult. How can we take this game that's not that difficult, you throw in a deathless, you throw in a damageless, and okay, it's a little bit more difficult now. It's a little bit more difficult to get through this boss damageless, versus just doing whatever you want and getting to 50% life and just zerging the boss. If you make the boss damageless, well, all of a sudden this retro game that's a medium difficulty game, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And then obviously the worst of the worst are retro games that were already difficult, and then stacking difficult achievements on top of that. That's the wombo combo, as some people might call it.
Uh, and you're absolutely right with that. Like there's games that like Kirby's Adventure on the NES, for instance. Like, you wouldn't think that game's going to be that hard, but there's like 3 mini games that you have to beat on hard on that game to get achievements for that are just almost impossible to do. And you're just like, why am I having so much trouble with Kirby?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think like some of the modern games, like you, both of you made some great point, but I think some of the modern game, like for me, like just example for Nintendo, they make like so much like games so easy. Like they make like Mario Kart easier. Something they maybe skip like stories and stuff like that. But if you just like had like achievements to it, like you mentioned, like deadlifts or just doing anything of that, it make like really the game more very interesting to do. So that's why we can like some people like tend to do for going more back to retro games because retro game are like harder and we have achievement. Some people don't know we have achievement with those, which is fantastic. But modern game has what I mean for me. Modern games like they tend to be more easier, and they tend like to be like just the graphic wise. It's just like you took like a beautiful graphic wise into the modern games, and if you put that into retro with achievements, you're gonna be like on a godlight. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just crazy. But I think they just like to into difficulty, and this is why with achievement is way more amazing to doing.
Yep, absolutely, I agree. That I mean that's definitely why I do it. You know, like games, I get challenged on a different level with RA, and it brings me so much. Just the best thing about RA, and Shootsy said it earlier, is we beat our heads on the wall for 10 hours straight at something, and then bam, we get it. It's the best feeling in the world, and you don't get that from. I don't get it from doing something on modern that way. Like I don't like. I pop a Xbox achievement or a trophy on PlayStation. It doesn't have the same ring as the RA achievements do to me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I never owned like too much like Steam or Xbox or something, a trophy. But if I was not doing already, I think now will be more likely to try it out.
Yep, absolutely.
So, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today, Pauls. We really appreciate having you here. I hope in the future we maybe can do a roundtable with you. That would be lovely to if you want to come back. Do you have any final thoughts or comment that you would like to share with us?
I would just like to thank you guys and all the devs of RA that have given us all this enjoyment, and I hope I can keep going on, and you guys keep going on, and it's been a really fun, I'd say, 2 years for me since I've been doing RA, and I just thank you guys for everything.
I mean, you're welcome, and thank you again for all the time you share with us today. So that's all the question we have for you today. To the people at home, thank you for listening to the RA podcast. If you liked this episode, don't forget to like the videos and hit the bell to be notified when future episodes go live. Let us know in the comment what other guests you would like to maybe see on the RA podcast. On that, thank you so much for listening, and see you to the next one. Bye.